Hi, this is Brennan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock Blog, and I'm here with Adam Balderstone, and we are continuing our discussion of Babylon 5, Season 5. We are on episodes 5 through 7 today, so we're doing Learning Curve, Strange Relations, and Secrets of the Soul. So, Adam, why don't you lead us in with your description of Learning Curve?
Well, learning curve. That's we have a group of rangers that come to visit with the Len, and they're gonna talking about the new policy of dealing with basically of the new policy of bringing people from all the different non-aligned races, which I guess they're not aligned because they're part of the alliance now. And on top of that, Garibaldi is really pushing Lockley on the "what is your secret? Why are you here?" thing, and what did you do during the war? And we also have a new crime boss in town who's taken over down below. So we even get a McGrath reference in this episode,
Yeah,
which any McGrath, I mean, you know McGrath, but he's mentioned by name, so that made me happy. But yeah, those are the threads running through this one. Oh yeah, and of course the new crime boss is committing crimes that will pull the Rangers in. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think of this episode?
well, I mean, after Mac and Bo, this was a welcome return to form. I thought this was a very solid episode. I liked getting the Anlashock training in. I enjoy the crime boss was a total. He was sort of like he's meant to be this way, but he's just one of these guys who just doesn't seem to understand the limits of his power, and he doesn't understand how to acquire power in Babylon 5 in a way that'll last long term. And so he's destined for for failure, you can tell from day one. But because of his sort of intense stubbornness, a bit of stupidity and aggressiveness, he's also going to do a lot of damage on the way before he gets to that point, which he does. So
Yeah.
that was the more fun sort of part of the story. But the stuff with Lockley, so number one, I've gotten a taste of from other people around that I know and I've spoken to. There's a lot of dislike of this character, I've learned. More so than I even imagined going
We're
in.
on Byron here again.
No, Lockley.
Oh, Lockley.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, oh yeah, Lockley. There is a fair amount of dislike of Lockley, definitely.
And I understand the dislike. And especially when we get into this, where I haven't seen anybody draw this direct comparison, but I feel like they would, where it gets a little bit Love Boat like with the backstory and do you know what I mean? There's like a little bit of a tangled web in this episode and next episode that we have to navigate. But I think it works. Like I feel like the stuff. I think I think you're supposed to feel that way about her. I think like you're supposed to dislike her, and they're doing everything they can to make you dislike her more with each of these episodes, and it's deliberate. And I feel like when it's deliberate and it's keeping me, because in a way, what I'm realizing is she's one of the things that's holding my interest in these episodes, because she's also serving as a challenge to the main characters. So like Garibaldi is having to deal with her, and she's we could have had Bester dead. Not this episode, but in one of the coming episodes, but because of her. And so I feel like it's an interesting move to keep the season interesting. And I think that if she weren't present, obviously they might have filled that vacuum with something else, but I think the season wouldn't work as well without her.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I mean, what she does in these episodes is pretty infuriating as a viewer at times. I'm like, oh no, you can't do that. But I mean, she's just doing her job. I mean, that's what she does. And I mean, there's, you can argue, well, is doing your job just doing your job right? But I'm saying she's. I understand her viewpoint, even though it's not what I would do. But it's. The things, I feel like she is a logical character. She infuriates me in ways that make sense.
Yeah, no, that's how I feel about it. But I've definitely gotten a taste of the dislike. So I can definitely sort of see that, why people feel that way. I just tend to come down a little differently on this one. I'm enjoying her. I also am enjoying the actress that plays her.
Yeah, she's good.
Yeah, I think she's a good actress. And I don't know. Do we get a little bit of Lita Alexander this episode, or is she not?
Yeah, we get some Lita in this episode, I believe. Not as much, but I don't know if there's any significant step with Lita that occurs in this one, though.
So, but yeah, the stuff with the Anlashok, the one part of this episode I didn't really buy is so I like the idea that they sort of established in this episode that members of the Alliance have agreed that Babylon 5 will allow governments to deal with with settle things in their own way with their people, right? Now, I would maintain that this is sort of a very gray area because the person that they're applying this to is
not their people.
Yeah, it's not their people. It's like a human, probably from Earth, I'm assuming, or Mars or something like that. So, I don't know. It's but it was a good way of at least establishing that detail, which does become very important in the Bester episode. So, I like that they did it. But I felt like that was sort of I don't know how she persuaded Lockley, given that. But we learn a couple of things. Number one, we learned that there's some kind of past between Lockley and Sheridan, because Delenn comes in and says, "Look, we're going to handle this on our own." Sheridan knows about it. We're gonna do the application of terror, which sounds like this horrible thing, but it really isn't as bad as she's saying. And because they're talking about the terror that, and we'll get into it. We'll get into the details about that. And Lockley says, "Oh no, he would never do that. That's not his style." I don't know what she said, but she basically says that's not in keeping with his personality. He's not the man I know. And so Delenn kind of holds that. She doesn't reveal her discomfort until the very end of the episode when she's with Sheridan. She's like, what did she mean by... So I thought that was that was nice, because we haven't really seen any significant quarrels like this between Delenn and Sheridan. So it's a little bit more believable now as a couple that they're having these kinds of things emerge.
The perfect couple anymore. And just, they're not like they're a disaster, but it's nice just to have a little bit of conflict in there.
No, and it doesn't become this awful thing. Well, maybe it does down the road, but right now it doesn't become like a weird love triangle or anything outrageous. It's just sort of like a bump in the road for them, but it adds a little bit of believability. But the whole backstory to that, one of the Rangers in training goes down below with another guy, and this crime lord is trying to set up a hit on Zach, of all people, and the woman that helped arrange it realizes that they're trying to set up the hit, and so she resists, and they're like, okay, just kill her, and the Ranger overhears and runs in. His friend doesn't go in because he's overly cautious, and the friend that runs in initially has some success, but then he gets the living Christ beat out of him, and he wakes up. Again, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of scenes that sort of revolve around people waking up in Franklin's med lab, and it was one of these situations. And because we get it with the telepaths, like 2 episodes down too, I think, and but I forgot where I was there. Oh, so so then because this guy had this experience where he's been beaten up by these crime bosses, and he's in the middle of his Anlashok training, they want to do the application of terror to purge him of the fears that he now has. Because he's had this opponent that sort of is maybe planted doubts in his mind. So I don't know. I had some mixed feelings about. Oh, can you hear me?
I can, but I can also hear myself, which is very distracting.
Oh, okay. Is it still happening, or is it settled down?
Let me talk. I think it's settled down now. Okay. Yeah, I was kind of getting an echo of myself coming back, and it's like, but yeah,
we got a little disruption there. But he, so the application of terror is then they go back down into down below with like all they have like a bunch of Rangers with them, I think, and they basically take out all this guy's men and then set it up so that he can have a duel with the Ranger that got beat up. And my question is, how come he's the one going down there and doing that, and not the guy who is a coward and didn't go? Okay, that's the part that I was sort of like, hey, that doesn't make sense.
I was really confused about the whole characterization on these Rangers too. I kept getting them mixed up too. Like in the first scene we see with them when they're in class, one of them is the I'm warrior caste and blah blah, and the other one's the one who was kind of laughing at the jokes and taking things lightly. And I don't know, due to the makeup and stuff, I didn't get a clear impression of either. So later when we get there, and we have the scene with one of them, going off to fight, and the other one hanging back. I don't know which was which. Like I said, I didn't feel, I don't know, and plus I don't know how that scene connected with their choice later, and I felt like, the characters weren't quite drawn sharply enough in difference, but I don't know.
Yeah, I was I had a little trouble following that too. In fact, I wasn't even 100% sure. Like with the final, it was they but it's like you say, between the makeup, they kind of look very similar, and you could, but I don't think I mixed them up by the end, right? The guy that went to the duel was.
You're right about that. I agree but I was thinking earlier in the episode, I was just kind of like feeding off the fact. I agree with you. It was kind of weird. The guy who wasn't afraid has to do the big test to avoid being scared. But
now, who was the guy that was teaching them that at the start of the episode? Is that Terval?
Yeah. Okay. And that he was. What's that?
No, go ahead.
I was saying, yeah, he was played by the same guy that played the Centauri Emperor back early in the show.
Yeah, he looked super familiar. Okay, yeah, I liked that guy a lot. He really, because he looked familiar, but I didn't immediately realize he was the Emperor. So that's, and he has a very distinct look even with the makeup on. So I thought it was.
Oh yeah. See, a lot of the. It's not like anyone in Minbari makeup looks the same, which is why me getting these two guys confused all the time was kind of weird. It's like, well, how much alike do these guys look without the makeup? Because I don't usually have that problem with Minbari. I mean, you can see most of their face, but
I just don't understand why the guy that didn't fight. That wasn't considered disruptive to his and Lashok training as well. He had like a little conversation with Terval, but Terval seemed to say, it's okay, it's not,
it's cool.
Yeah,
just let your friend go off and get beaten up. It's fine.
Like I don't know. I feel like I don't know. It was I would have thought that because that guy now is going to have doubts too, right? Because he's going to be like, well, maybe I'm not like as brave as I ought to be, and so. But the guy that went in there, like, well, okay, if I were those two guys, right? If I were one of those, I'd rather be the guy that got beat up. I'd feel better about myself.
Yeah.
Having been beaten up than being the guy that didn't go in there. And so that's the part that sort of was a little confusing. Not confusing, but just like I felt like maybe it could have used a little bit more exploration, because I feel like they missed the opportunity to reverse those roles. Because there's no shame in getting the crap beat out of you by 8 people that are, teaming. Do you know what I mean? He did about as well as a person could do in that situation. The fact that he went in knowing that could happen, I'd say that's good. That's good material for the Rangers. That's not something to sort of, we live for the one, we die for the one. He established that he's willing to die. The other guy established that he wasn't willing to die. So. I don't know. I just feel like it was kind of odd. It was an odd choice. But... Yeah,
it's odd because of the placement of it. I mean, because we had the conversation, Terval's conversation with him, where he talks to him about, you shouldn't worry about what other people think and stuff. And it's like, as it felt like his failure was the bigger thing, having that be earlier in the episode than the resolution of this other guy who... They say, well, he might get scared because he got beat up, but we never see it from him. Other people talk about it. Other people talk about, if he doesn't deal with this, he'll be kind of scarred by this. But it's not I feel like if his character had demonstrated uncertainty because he got beat up, that would have lent it power, but just having other characters speculate on
it was just a matter of policy. But again, this is the part that I don't get. Like, wouldn't it make way more sense for his guy to get the talking to and have it put into context by Terval? Like, oh no, you're brave, you risk death, so there's nothing, there's no reason to have any problem with this. And the other guy is the one that needs to be made an example out of, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I just thought
it was weird.
I mean, I'm sure that's just the rules of, Endleshok, and that's how it is. But like, I just felt like it would have been more satisfying if it were reversed. That's
Sinclair set all this stuff up, and I think he would have done a better job.
Yeah. So I agree with you. So anyways, so I think that was pretty much it. Then they take Trace and they don't. I don't think they actually kill him, right? They just take him to prison or something, and
they don't kill him.
Okay.
Like I said, it was very Batman-esque kind of feel to it to me, the whole thing.
And so
fear as a weapon and so on.
And I guess we should probably transition to the next episode unless you have something to add, because it's kind of a part 2 in a way. Like, it does add other things, but this gets we get some resolution on the Lockley thing, and we learn that that she and Sheridan were briefly married, and that basically the reason why he brought her in is because he needs somebody from Earth that he doesn't think is going to murder him in his sleep. And so she's like, I guess who better than like an ex-wife, So
I mean,
I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like there's a lot of exes that you probably wouldn't want to bring into that kind of situation. So
well, it's how long ago it was. It was like right after they got out of school, they got married for 3 months, and it's like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, 3-month relationships from when I was like in my early 20s. It's like I don't know. I don't know what I think about those people now. I mean, there are some people I have that I'm in contact over that time, but it's like, I don't know. Most people I know in their early 20s are different people now.
Yeah, no, I think that's what I was thinking, is that it's been such a long time that anything could have happened in the intervening years. She could have been reprogrammed by the Psi Corps. They've seen that happen before. Like, why? I understand why he's doing it. I just don't understand Sheridan's supreme confidence in her. But then again, Sheridan, he has shown that he does things like that.
That's true.
I don't think it's totally out of character for him at the same time. So I think it's just frustrating me as a viewer.
You've got a point. Sheridan's decisions don't always have to be entirely rational. He's very impulsive at times in the way he makes decisions.
So but we all. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, and him doing this decision and not explaining to anybody why and thinking it's never going to come out was pretty foolish too. It's like, no one, I'm the president. Who's ever going to look into my previous marriages? That will never happen.
Well, also, just knowing what he knows, couldn't he tell Garibaldi, because he knows it's going to like become, you know what I mean? Like, just to nip that in the bud.
If anything, you think you want to go to Garibaldi and be like, "Hey, I'm trying to keep this quiet, Garibaldi. As the head of my covert group, can you do what you can to keep a lid on this?" Yeah. It's a weird kind of plot line to keep a secret. But I'd forgotten it was a secret, actually. As I remembered that she was his ex-wife, but I'd forgotten they had this whole thread of, trying to make it a mystery. But it is weird. It's such an easy thing to look up who people were married to. But whatever.
But the big thing that happens this episode is the Bloodhound units are Babylon 5 with Bester. And I'm thinking, like, what the hell? Bester can just waltz into Babylon 5 after all that stuff that happened at the end of Season 4? So I was a little bit sort of peeved by that. But then I realized Lockley is trying to play by Earth rules. And so she is... Yeah.
It infuriated me that he could do it, but I'm like, well, yeah, I get what Lockley is saying.
But I did have some issues. So, like, he comes up, like we already had that episode where Sheridan says, sure, the telepaths can form a colony here. So he's given them his he said Babylon, the president of Babylon 5 is giving them shelter. And then when Bester arrives, they're like, nope, we have to go by whatever Earth rule says because the Alliance and and they're a member of the Alliance. And it's like, well, I feel like when he initially established that they could take shelter there, he was basically saying, look, he's treating them as refugees, or like, it's like, he views them as victims of war crimes or something. So I just don't understand the lack of intervention in this episode from Sheridan. It doesn't. I feel like, I don't know. It just seems. I know that he was kind of trying to do the thing where he had Lockley get around it by whatever means she had available. And in the end, I guess it kind of succeeded. She gets like a month reprieve for them, but because of the quarantine. Because this is also the episode where we find out that Franklin is going to be in charge of sort of amassing a database of information on alien viruses and illnesses, so that they can sort of deal with diseases that cross from one species to another, and so he uses that to issue a proclamation that basically says that anybody that's been to certain sectors of space has to be in quarantine for like a month or something, and so these people have been all over the galaxy or wherever because they've been they've been evading the Psychor, so it applies to them. And so Lockley comes in and tells Bester, like after he's found them finally, that I need to keep them in holding, and Bester agrees to it. Bester is sort of peak Bester here, where he says, "Well, in the interest of cordial relations with you, I will abide by this. I just want it in writing that you're not going to go that you're gonna hand them over at the end of the month." And it might have been 2 months. I forget the exact time frame. But Bester was just, what I liked about Bester this episode,
60 days, I think, was the
60
exact
days?
amount.
Okay, so 2 months. But Bester was sort of floating on air this episode because he realizes he sees Lockley as an ally. And he's even boasting about it. He goes down to where, are they in down below the Psychor? Are they somewhere in down below?
I think so, yeah.
No, I think they're in a particular section.
The psychics, you mean not Psychor, you mean the
I'm sorry, the telepaths.
Yeah, they're in Brown Sector. Yeah.
So they get to Brown Sector and Lita is protecting them, and he has this whole exchange with Lita where she's using her psychic ability to like whiplash them, and Bester's so calm during all this, like he's realizing how powerful he is and how powerful she is, and he's just like, oh, interesting. How long do you think you can do that for? It looks like it's having, it looks like it's really wearing you down. And it's mustache twirling villainy, but I just like, I don't know, I enjoy it with Bester. And, and so, but he mentions to Lita at this point, he says, well, I have allies on Babylon 5 now, so I don't have to worry. And he just seems so at ease.
Yeah, she eventually comes back too. It's like you think he's starting to rally. She's like, well, yeah, I might wear out. I might do something like burst a blood vessel in someone's brain if I get too out of. If I do this too long, I might lose control. But which was a good comeback.
Yeah, that was the best. That was a very, very good rebuttal to.
Yeah, you don't want me to get sloppy with this, but yeah, that was a very good face-off between her and Bester.
But I guess she and Bester are like the ultimate frenemies. Like there's I don't think because he has that arrangement with her, right? So he doesn't want her getting damaged. Do you know what I mean? He wants her fully preserved when she dies. So, and I don't remember the exact terms, but I think a violent death could potentially. I don't think he can actually harm her. I think that's the thing. So,
yeah, she has to die naturally for him to collect the body. So,
but yeah. So anyways, I don't know. I thought it was a decent episode. Oh, and we got the bodyguard thing with Londo and Jakar becomes Londo's bodyguard. It's kind of dealt with quickly, but we know it's going to become important. And I think Londo is now scheduled to kind of go back to Centauri. Is that this episode?
Yeah, it's scheduled. I think, that's why they come up with the bodyguard thing, is they think, oh man, if if Londo goes back there, he's he's at great risk of getting assassinated. And if he gets assassinated, he's our guy. We're not gonna, the next emperor might be someone who has no interest in the alliance. So yeah, that's why they have an interest in keeping Londo alive.
And so, but there's like a very ominous feeling when they realize that Londo is going back. Like Londo just has this look on his face, and he has a premonition, and so. And based on what we've seen, the shoulder people, this isn't going to be good. I don't know if it's a good idea to have Jakar be his bodyguard. I think that's going to prove like a problem.
What do you see Jakar doing to Londo? I don't know.
I don't care about that. That we know is coming is got to be resolved. I don't want Jakar ending up with one of those things on his shoulders. I think that would be, that's I like where Jakar is right now, and that's going to be a really bitter place for him to go if he has to go there. So I don't know. Did we miss anything for this episode, or are we?
I think that's it. The bodyguard thing was the last item I had there, I believe. Let me just do a quick double check. Yeah, I'm ready to move on.
And so then we get the episode Secrets of the Soul. So what's the rundown of this episode?
Well, we get another Dr. Franklin medical mystery in this one, so that's part of it. And on top of that, Lita gets closer and closer to the telepath group. They fully take her in as one of their own. She's just kind of been hanging out with them but going home, but it seems like she's kind of moving in with the telepath thing, and her and Byron have become overtly romantic at this point. And I think this is the episode too where it actually truly. Wait, I don't know. I got to admit I'm a little muddled up on the exact point when it becomes open that Lockley is his ex-wife. I think that truly comes out in this episode.
But in this episode, this is the episode where somebody beats up the telepath, right? The telepath.
Oh yes, it is that too. Yes.
So I want to deal with that first, and then I want to get on the Franklin stuff because, like you said, it's another Franklin episode, another Franklin medical mystery episode. But it's one that I actually really enjoyed.
It is a good one, yeah.
And I have some thoughts on why, but to deal with the telepath first, because I think that's one of the most important things. This is where we seem to see a real shift in Byron's character. I don't know if this is temporary or permanent, but for the past 2 episodes and all through this episode, he's been very peaceful. Do you know what I mean? He's been all about peace. When Bester's bloodhounds were on him, he was telling Lita, violence is their way, not our way. Now, we did see one brief moment when the bloodhounds were actually capturing him, where he sort of stared them down and he had a real menacing look on his face, but then he seemed to let them capture him. So but to me, that was like, well, that does not look like the face of a man of peace. But at the same time, he was still talking this peaceful game. And this whole episode too, he's desperately trying to prevent his telepaths from getting revenge against the man who, there's like this, basically, like I would just say, like he's like a telepath bigot or something, who's sort of getting drunk in the down below, and he's causing problems, and he just, he has this initial run in with Byron where, Byron just lets him punch him in the face like 4 or 5 times. And he says, is the 4th punch different than the 3rd? Like, how many is this going to take? The guy kind of freaks out and leaves. And then it rattles the guy, and I think he thinks that it was like a telepath thing, and maybe it was. And so he comes back with a vengeance, and they beat up, I can't remember the telepath's name. Was it Peter?
Peter, yeah.
He's like the special little boy in the group. I think he just arrived this episode or the last episode, and he can move things with his mind, but he's a little weird, and he's got a stutter, and he's just sort of meant to be like, my impression is that Byron sees him as like a nephew or a son. Like he seems to have genuine paternal affection for Peter. And so Peter gets really badly, to the point of nearly dying, beaten up with like a pipe. And I mean, it's like these guys were trying to kill him. They were not just trying to hurt him. And he wakes up in med lab, and I think he's okay though, right? They're able to put him back together and everything, but because Byron ends up being put in a holding cell for the night because Zach is jealous of him, basically. I think that's what happens, right? Like Zach arrives on the scene.
That's the big thing this episode. Zach kind of gets villainous this episode. He's kind of the bad guy.
Well, so Zach is clearly still has affection for Lita, and he tries to sort of warn her to not deal with this Byron guy, and then Zach shows up right at the moment when the telepaths are about to get vengeance on the guy who beat up the telepath, and Byron shows up and basically stops them, but he's in a compromising position when Zach pops out of a corner, and so Zach puts him in a holding cell, and then he's really not able to stop them, right? That's the I think that's what ends up happening. I don't know. Did they kill the guy though, or did they just really beat him up badly?
The guy they arrested Byron for, you're saying?
Yeah.
I don't know if they ever made it clear, but I mean, they basically like were just kind of mentally torturing him. He thought he was on fire. They didn't like beat him up. He just had him kind of seeing those visions of being on fire.
But wasn't there another beat after that? Like that happened.
Oh, there was a beat down after that while Byron.
That's
was
what I'm talking about.
I'm sorry. Okay.
No, yeah. So what happens while he's in the holding cell?
Yeah, that they go and beat the guy up. Yeah, that was a genuine attack there.
And then Byron comes out and he's basically like, if I hadn't been in the cell, like, I could have stopped, and this wouldn't have happened. You wouldn't be dealing with this. And so, and it seems like that actually weighs on Zach. Like Zach realizes that he was probably right. At least that was my impression. I don't know. Did you?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can't remember the details of this plot line enough to know where Zach is at the moment. And I didn't get a clear read on how he felt about it.
But then the thing, and again, I'm a little bit muddy too because I had watched this one late at night. But I do remember at the end. So my point is though, this whole time Byron he's talking a peaceful game and he seems earnest about it. He's he's like, look, we're about peace and they're about fighting and we're not going to do that. And so but then he and Lita have sex and she warns them before they have sex that my boundaries might come down because I haven't done this since they changed me, and I don't know how that's going to affect all of you. And so he and I think all the other telepaths basically see what the Vorlons did to her, which was really weird, and the fetuses and all that stuff. But they also learn her knowledge that the Vorlons are responsible for the creation of telepaths and humans, and so then Byron does a 180 as soon as he gains this information, and that's the part where I don't know how I feel about that, because I mean, again, I feel like I need to know more, but I thought he was going to be like a Jim Jones type, and I think that there still is sort of a Jim Jones thing going on with him, where this path that he's trying to carve out collapses in on itself, and he resorts to sort of some extreme measure to preserve whatever he has left. But this felt more like, no, he consciously decides to become a terrorist, and I didn't like that. I didn't feel that. I don't know. It felt too. Not that him consciously choosing to do that would be bad, but the way that it happened felt weird. That one piece of knowledge twisted him in that way. I don't know.
Well,
was I misreading the episode?
It was. Well, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I can't remember the details of what's going to happen exactly in this plot line, but I don't know. The thing that was weird for me was it's like, oh, the Vorlons did this to us, so all the younger races owe us.
That's what I'm saying.
It was like,
that's what I'm saying.
That didn't make any sense to me logically. It's like they didn't. Nobody around who's still around did this to you. There's no one for you to blame that's still around.
Like if he had seen Sheridan, doing something malicious to telepaths in the vision, then I would be like, okay, I get like. But basically, after they have sex, he says, well, we're gonna like demand a place of our own, and if they don't agree, we'll make them agree. Like, that's sort of...
Yeah, I don't know if I read that as being a terrorist, though. I mean, I don't know if...
I might be just taking what I've seen from the future and applying it to this situation. So maybe that's why I'm saying I don't... I kind of need to see more, but, like, it just seemed like a really rapid shift to go from, we're all about peace and, hey, I get it, well, because up until this point, he was sort of more than happy to get up and leave. Do you know what I mean? And like he was like, okay, we'll just leave Babylon 5 quietly and find somewhere else to go. And now he's like, no, we're gonna, like there's just a determination in what he's doing, and I just don't understand how the Vorlon thing caused that. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I don't know, it's just an odd thing to me. I don't know, maybe I'm missing something, or maybe I'm just being stupid. But
yeah, I mean it was a weird kind of reaction, though, definitely. But like I said, it's kind of thing I'll need to see another episode and see where they're going with it before I can really make up my mind.
Yeah. But the whole Byron crew, there's a very Lost Boys feel to the Lost Boys, like the movie, not like Peter Pan, but like there's like a very Lost Boys feel to the den that they are living in. And even I think even one of the guys even looks. I don't know for sure, but he looks like he was maybe one of the actual Lost Boys.
But it's weird because it's like I mean, there definitely is some truth to the fact that Byron is really ego tripping on this whole thing. I mean, it's like I think his intentions have been good. I think he's generally trying to do something good, but he the whole martyr thing of well, I can't rest, I need to do this and I need to do this, and it's like you're making what is a movement for all telepaths all about you, Byron. You're making it all about you.
And that's why I saw him as sort of like a cult leader, like like he might even start out talking stuff that makes sense and is good, but it's ultimately going to lead somewhere very badly because it's all about his ego. But this just seemed like a very sudden. You know what it is? I don't feel like you needed this to get to some sort of dire point later in the season. That's what I'm sort of getting at. I didn't, that Lita thing tipping him over feels very unnecessary because all of the ingredients for an implosion seem present. So, but I don't know. I might be being too hard on it, and I am enjoying the telepath plot line. I just, I don't know. I didn't. That revelation seemed sort of odd. It took me the reason why it didn't work for me is I think it took me a while to realize why he was even mad. Do you know what I mean? I was just kind of like, I don't know, why did that bother? It just didn't. It just took a while for it to sink in, and it didn't have the normal sort of that you would get. If I had that reaction to the revelation, then it would have been different. But so I don't know.
And I this is a complicated season because you've got two characters that do antagonize the audience a lot, with both Lockley and and Byron, the living Bradstreet illustration. But it's and so I don't know. I get it's like I get why a lot of people do get angry at this season, but I feel like the season is trying to make you angry at it. So.
No, I agree. And I don't have a problem with Byron himself. I actually am enjoying the Byron character. And I think he's kind of, especially when you see like a character like Marcus in the show, a character like Byron isn't that, you know what I mean? It's not that far off. No. And again, I'm actually, and one of the things, and again, I'm almost more fascinated by the people around him at times because I'm constantly looking at the extras that are the telepaths and trying to figure out where I've seen them before because they all look vaguely familiar to me. Like I feel like some of the people in there might have been on Wayne's World as part of Wayne's retinue. Like just weird. like I'm recognizing faces, but I feel like I've seen them in really odd places. Not like
He's got the generic '90s retinue. Is what's going on.
That might be it. There just might have been like a group of people that they hired who had long hair for.
They just put out a casting call looking for '90s style retinue, and all the people from Wayne's World showed up, and they're like, yeah, the agent's like, I got the people for you. These people do retinue like nobody. But
Well, it's important because you need to believe that these people are do you know what I mean? Like because they've got the sort of arrangement where like he might walk over to somebody and go, but Jim, you never do that. Like they have to be characters that you believe he's been hanging with for a long time and has a rapport with, but they say like nothing 99% of the time. So
yeah, well, it's something I'm conflicted on with these episodes. Because on one hand, I feel like with all this time we've had, I feel like they should. Because I mean, with the Peter thing, for example, I feel like, man, well, we really if I mean, Peter's only been around just that one episode, but I feel like maybe the show could have given us more time to know Peter before that happened. So instead of him being, oh, this character was just introduced, we could have met him 2 episodes ago, and when he got beat up, it would have been like more personal to us.
Well,
but on the other,
go ahead.
But on the other hand, I kind of get the idea that by making them all a little more faceless and mob-like, it does create more of that sense of it being a cult. Byron talks for them and everyone else is silent. So
yeah,
I go back and forth on that, which is the best approach.
No, I agree. And even if they were talking, they'd still probably not be talking as much, even if they weren't telepaths, just because they're supposed to be like a retinue. They're not meant to be. If you don't want you juggling 9 characters while as soon as Peter showed up, I was like, okay, that guy's gonna die or something.
Exactly.
Especially when Byron was like, oh, this is Peter. He's special. And you can just tell he's like, like Peter is the closest thing this guy has to a son. And and so it was, you just knew. But again, I think overall this works for me. I think that, I didn't really know. I didn't know if this. I thought this was going to be like the telepath war. And it turns out it's not, or at least it doesn't look like it's going there. It looks like it's going to be more of like a small scale conflict among telepaths that are on Babylon 5, and so I don't know. It's kind of nice. We don't necessarily need that telepath war. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it will become the telepath war in the next 3 episodes. But right now it looks like they're going for much smaller scale, is my impression. And it feels like this might be a contributing component of that telepath war that we know is coming, but it's not the actual telepath war. And I think that works because then you don't have that thing where like the telepath war just sort of leaps out of nowhere in mid-season or something. It might not even come out at all. It might be post season 5. We're just supposed to know it eventually happens. And so I don't know. I think that works.
I do enjoy the smaller scale of this season on the whole. I mean, when was the last time we got a plot where some, underworld crime guy rolled in and was like, oh, I'm going to take over. Yeah. I'm like in season 1, that was a thing, but it's like that kind of became completely irrelevant through 3 and 4. Now the show is back to the scale where that guy it can possibly be a character.
And those guys are so entertaining to watch fail. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It was just very enjoyable, and also this episode we also had the medical mystery with Franklin, which I
we haven't even talked about that, have we?
And we only got about 10 minutes, but we can probably squeeze it in.
Oh, we can 10 minutes will do it.
This was very Star Trek in a lot of ways, but it was Star Trek in the ways that I think work on Babylon 5. Whereas it's sort of world building. It's giving you, number one, it's kind of important because we know that Franklin is having this arc where his role is going to be sort of understanding this aspect of medical knowledge that is something that is kind of intriguing. It's interesting. You would have sort of this concern about viruses going from human to not Vorlon, but Mimbari and Narn to Pakmara and all these different paths that illnesses could take and maybe having different effects on different species. So it's a cool sort of idea, and it's nice to put Franklin there, and it's nice that they're able to get a little bit of drama out of it by, as one of his first things, he has to go and sort of get the records from different groups of races, and some of them might be more willing than others to because they might have things they don't want members of the Alliance to know. We've learned that a lot of these alien races have secrets that they don't want others to know, and so he goes to what are the names? Hayek, is that the name of the
Hayek? Yeah.
And so they have an interesting background where they essentially had another species on their planet. I might be getting this wrong because again it was fuzzy, but they had another species on their planet that was sort of akin to how we had the Neanderthals earlier in our history, except I guess their species didn't vanish. As it was still within the historical records that this species was around, and they committed massive genocide against these people, and it turned out to their own detriment because they needed some piece of DNA from this group, and without it, I think essentially their DNA is breaking down. Is that what he was? I don't know. I didn't know that I quite understood it, but it sounded like each generation they're getting weaker. And so,
they needed the interbreeding. I mean, the science behind it, they didn't go into at all, and I don't. So I can't explain any of that. But I mean, it made sense, like on an abstract level, at least to me.
Okay.
Yeah, but they apparently somehow the occasional crossbreedings kept them stable. And
this happened way back, right? This happened a long time ago, but they still wanted to keep it secret, and so eventually it does come to light, and there's a lot of maneuvering, and one of the Hayek tries to hold him at gunpoint, but I don't know. I was enjoying it all, and I was really enjoyed hearing the story of what happened. I thought Franklin's judgment of them was a little bit harsh, I thought, given that they weren't even involved in the genocide.
I think he was angling, to be honest, because I thought it was kind of unfair him going, oh, I can't help you. It's like, because it's ironic too. It's like, well, I was like, where have all the Neanderthals gone, Franklin? What happened to them after all, huh? But I mean, there was that, and I mean. But I feel like, because what he kind of ultimately said was, I can't help you because you're keeping this a secret, and we need to make this a big project. We can't, we're going to need to set up a big operation on your planet. So I feel like he was kind of angling from the point that we can't secretly fix this. If we fix this, it's going to have to be a grand program on your planet. We can't do that if people don't know.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
But I think partly it was just him being angry too. Like as far as like, no, I'm angry at you. You
like
did
I
this
could get if they had done it. Like if they had done it, I would have been. Or even if it was like one generation ago or two generations.
It was 800 years ago.
Yeah,
so
but this is like what would be an equivalent to this? I mean,
it's like let's getting mad at the Norwegians over the Viking invasion of England.
Yeah. Or the fall of Constantinople, like holding a grudge about the fall of it's just
actually that's older. Yeah,
but you know what I mean. Like the any when something's like over 400 years old, it's so anyways, I don't know. I think but it was good. I still enjoyed it, and I liked the Hayek. They were kind of an interesting race, and I don't know. There's something very Murder, She Wrote about them. They had like an Angela Lansbury look to them.
They had a race of Angela Lansbury.
They did. They looked like Angela Lansbury to me, and it was appropriate because it was a mystery, So
there you go. There you go. But yeah, I like that they both had. I mean, a lot of times when you deal with the minor races in the non-aligned worlds, they kind of avoid ever giving them particular names. And it was Tal, and it was her attaché Kieran. Like like the main races all have their named ambassador and attaché, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
No, in fact. Because of that, I thought that they were Narn at first, because I didn't get a good... Like, when I first saw them, I thought they were just, like, strange-looking Narn, and she said, this is my attaché, so I was like, oh, it must be a Narn, then. It just...
it seemed very Narnish to you. But that was a nice touch. But, yeah, I like that story on the whole, and it's kind of unresolved. It doesn't go into melodrama that they're doomed or, and it's not solved. It's just like, oh, it's this, problem. We're going to deal with it, which was, I think, a good Babylon 5 resolution to the story.
Yeah, no, it worked for me. And unfortunately, we're going to have to end it here because we're coming up on the hour. But do you have anything you want to add about the episodes that we saw? Or
I think I'm good. Yeah.
All right, so we're on. So we just finished episode 7, so we'll hopefully get to 8, 9, and 10 by next time, and we will be making our way through this season. And again, I'm enjoying it. It's a different season than 4. It's a different season than 3. I don't know if it's going to crank up in a big way or not. But so far, with the exception of that Mac and Bo episode, I'm pretty happy with what I've seen. It's like a nice winding down of the show, and I think that's what's needed here. Again, maybe they'll surprise me and go another direction, but I don't mind the winding down aspect of this season. Which isn't to say there won't be like a climax, just that I don't think this is going to rise quite to the level of season 4. That seemed like a really big,
that was a big height
mountain to.
Yeah, and you could feel them winding it down too. Like, okay, Franklin's going to lead the med lab, and he's taking this job investigating aliens. Delenn and Glenn and Sheridan are preparing to go to Minbar and building the Capitol. Londo's ready to move off to Centauri. It's like everything is. They're getting ready to turn off the lights here.
yeah, it's got that feel, and so I think that's what's needed. It's a good way for the show to go out, and we'll see what happens. The big thing I'm wondering about is, does Garibaldi live or not? That is the big sort of mystery to me. Also, I guess Lita, because I have a feeling that she's either in the room shooting him or at least involved. And if she's not the person in there, maybe she's already died. I've sort of been trying to construct what happens based on these pieces they gave us, and it's driving me crazy. And I'll probably be wrong, because I'm usually wrong about this stuff. But
it's part of the fun.
Yeah. But anyways, all right. So we'll let you go, and we will be back on hopefully soon. And on Friday we're going to finish up the Brave Archer series. Yeah. So we have the Brave Archer, and then what I'm really looking forward to is Chinese Ghost Story the following week. That is, we're going to end February with a romantic tale between the human realm and the ghost realm. So
looking forward to both movies very much.
All right, so we will be back on and talk to you later.